Safeguard our flank. Chapter 3, Part 7. A diversionary movement. When General Haig planned his battle on the Somme, he wondered how he could give the attack a better chance of success. Whilst he considered this, he told the commanders of his 1st, 2nd and 3rd armies to carry out constant threatening moves to keep the German troops on their toes. Like all good commanders, he consulted his intelligence section and took soundings from his staff. He came up with a diversionary movement. This wasn't a new idea, as all commanders consider one, placing them at a distance from the main attack, the flanks being an ideal place. On Haig's left was a salient sticking out of the German line, and this was a continuing saw which would be the perfect place. Gommecourt, for that was the name of the salient, would be ideal. As he couldn't take any forces away from General Rawlinson, he contacted General Allenby, commander of his 3rd Army, to request a corps transferred. Allenby chose the 46th and the 56th Territorial Divisions. Their task was to mount a full-scale attack on Gommecourt, the object to remove the salient if possible, but more importantly to cause a diversion to stop German reinforcements backing up their troops opposite the main the British thrust, which was to be an advance up the main road from Albert towards Bapaume. This main force was Lieutenant General Rawlinson's 4th Army, backed up and supported by Lieutenant General Gough's Reserve Army, who were hoping to break out into the country beyond. Neither Allenby nor Rawlinson liked the plan because there was a gap between their army and Rawlinson's 4th, leaving no protection to the right flank of the attacking force, between Gommecourt and Sierre, the preserves of Hunter Weston's 8th Corps. Behind Gommecourt is the north. To the north was the quadrilateral, a defensive position surrounded by tracks. Southwest lay the village, the high street, the crossroads, chateau, park, woods, orchards and cemetery. By the time of the battle there were 3 lines of German trenches and interlocking communication trenches, plus their dugouts and fortified posts. The whole lot constituted the Köln redoubt. From the centre of the main British attack at Albert, Gommecourt is some 10 miles to the north. All the villages through which the German front line ran were turned into fortified strongpoints. The Köln redoubt was one, if not the main defensive system in the line, and as such going to be an extremely hard nut to crack. This wasn't obvious to the casual observer, for all the main troop locations were underground, with passageways leading to specific locations and key outer defences. The machine gun nests were camouflaged, some with top covers, others with strategic positions dictated by the attacker's approach. The German defending artillery was used for counter-battery and bombardment, and was hidden by a number of woods. In front of the firing line was staked barbed wire strung to a minimum depth of 10 feet. Both the little Z, a zigzag on the eastern flank, and the Z just before the village, a finger of park jutting out of the centre, allowed machine gun fire to enfilade the Sherwoods attacking the wood. Lieutenant General Sir Thomas D'Oyley Snow was born in Newton Valence. He attended Eton and St John's College, Oxford, obtaining a commission in 1879. Promoted captain in 1887, he took part in the wars in Africa, reaching staff rank in 1897. At the outbreak of the First World War, he commanded the 4th Division, finally becoming commander of the 7th Corps on the 15th of July 1915. His force at Gommecourt comprised the 46th North Midland Division and the 56th 1st London Divisions. It was Snow's plan, and his alone, to create a pincer movement around the strongly held Gommecourt Park, the tip of the German salient. He had, however, no freedom of action about the numbers of artillery pieces he could muster, the type or numbers of shells allowed for each gun, or the timing of his attack, for these had to conform to the main battle plan devised by his senior commander, General Rawlinson. The diversion's main aim was to draw German attention away from the main battle area, to keep him occupied, whereas Snow's plan smacks of an aggressive action to encircle, crush, and to take. If he had planned a single push using all his forces on the weakest part of the German front line, somewhere where they couldn't be shot at by machine gun fire, whilst making his flank secure, his action would have had a far greater effect. A narrow front allowed a greater concentration of fire on batteries on the front and in the rear. The then current General Staff instructions were that no attack should be made when having to advance more than 200 yards from the enemy. Snow stressed before the battle to his 2 divisional commanders, "This is a diversion to support the main battle. Your role is a strictly limited one. There are no reserves, and your attack should only take place when the German defences have been destroyed by the artillery." These limiting factors are restrictive and important guidelines. They indicate that there was no strategic point to the attack, and that success depended on a single outcome, the occupation of the Germans. During the attack, all Rawlinson's limiters would need verification, checked by a trustworthy officer who would then report back. Presumably General Rawlinson received this. There are no references to an on-the-spot examination, nor who was to make the decision, or by what means the information was to be carried back to those in charge. Only the commanding officer at the front can decide if the German defences have been destroyed sufficiently to be sure any attack from there on in would be successful. If he cannot be certain by personal knowledge, he must get good, reliable information passed to him. On the day, neither of these instructions were carried out. Within the first few minutes it was perfectly clear the German defences had not been destroyed, and within the first 2 hours it was clear that here there was a disaster in the making. Opposing his men, General Snow had General Fritz von Billow's 2nd Guards Reserve Infantry Division, which had been formed in August 1914 from non-Guards reservists from Westphalia. They included artillery, cavalry and engineers. The Diversion Division was made up of the 26th Reserve Infantry Brigade, the 15th and the 55th Regiments, and the 38th Reserve Infantry Brigade, plus the 77th and the 91st. From spring until late June 1916, there was feverish activity along the whole Allied front, which was gaining momentum. It was obvious to all, particularly the Germans, that there was going to be an attack. This was even more evident to the Germans' 2nd Reserve Division, reserve regiments. All were purposely allowed to see preparations taking place. This was part of the ruse to draw attention away from the main British attack. General Haig's plan was to create a series of feints along the whole front and to make them obvious, which is what he did. This order was carried out to the letter. All preparations were made openly, and in May von Billow was informed by his operations branch that air surveys had reported the construction of a broad-gauge railway, new highways and gun positions. General Falkenhayn ordered his pioneers to construct a 3rd line of defences to give extra retiring positions. A detachment of 8-inch howitzers was transferred made up of captured Russian guns. However, Falkenhayn believed the British will only pin down the front, not make a serious attempt at Gommecourt. However, by the 1st of June, Below worked out by evidence that the British were going to attack Gommecourt, and he ordered his men to be watchful. Practices were carried out to see how long it would take from a warning to get men up from the deep dugouts, assemble their machine guns and start firing. The eventual target was 3 minutes. Fritz von Below and Prince Ruprecht, expecting the Gommecourt salient would be one of the main targets. Falkenhayn thought the British attack would be further north and refused to send extra troops. At the start of the battle, the Germans were outnumbered 7-1. Lieutenant General Snow told General Haig, "They know we're coming all right." Von Below reinforced the Gommecourt sector with the 2nd Guard Reserve in the middle of June, and later with the 170th Reserve Regiment. The 2nd Guards Reserve Division was commanded by General Freiherr von Susskind, which was part of General Stein's 14th Reserve Corps. The German savers of the salient were the 15th, the 55th, the 77th and the 107th Regiments. All these German units had at full strength a composite of 800 men in 9 battalions, and this was approximately half that of the British. The main difference between the two armies was, in training, the number of machine guns, artillery support and the provision of appropriate ammunition. Originally there were 2 German regiments and their artillery holding the salient. This was increased to 4 with a number in support. The 2 new regiments brought with them their own artillery to add to the 19th and 20th Reserve Field Artillery Regiments 50+, which were already positioned there. A number of heavy howitzer batteries were included. All these guns could reach the 7th and the 8th Corps troops stationed opposite Sire, Beaumont Hamel and Gommecourt's right flank.